Hi, I'm Josh Baker, sales representative for McWane Ductile, covering Tennessee and North Georgia. Today, I've got Jerry Regula, product engineer for McWane Ductile. Jerry's going to help us walk through the 3 tapping methods. But before we get started, it's really important to note you need to check with your local utility and the specifications that they have set in place before choosing one of these methods.
Thanks, Josh. So first of all, we have a 3/4 inch direct tap, also known as a corp stop. There are numerous taps of various sizes that you may need for your particular application. For this demonstration, we're using 3/4 inch tap. So we have the direct tap, and we also have a tapping saddle, which notice you still need the corp stop to make the connection. You can use this one on ductile, but for alternate materials, you may need a different type saddle with a solid bottom versus the straps. Lastly, we have the tapping sleeve, which again, you still need the corp stop to make the connection. This sleeve can be used on any of these products. To keep in mind here, this is a 6-inch sleeve. And notice we have 2 bolts to tighten down for our connection. For a larger diameter sleeve, we would have an increased number of bolts, which obviously would increase the installation time.
Now, can all of these tapping methods, can they be used on each one of these materials?
And Josh, this is where it gets a little tricky. So the direct tap is primarily used with the ductile iron pipe. However, it can be used with the PVC pipe depending on the class. The tapping saddle can be used on all 3 of these materials, but again, for the ductile iron, you're okay with a standard saddle, but with the alternate materials, you really want to check with the pipe manufacturer to make sure you have the proper saddle. With the sleeve, you may exercise a little extra caution with other materials versus the ductile iron pipe, but the sleeve can be used on all 3 of these materials.
How many taps can we do on these given materials, and how close together can they be?
We can tap the ductile iron pipe as close as your equipment will allow versus the other 2 materials, which you want to see the product specifics when tapping these materials. Obviously, with the direct tap, we don't need much space, so we can put many taps into a ductile iron piece of pipe. What would you think about the tapping saddle?
We've got quite a bit of surface space there, so it looks like we're going to be further apart with our taps.
Correct. You can install more direct taps than you could with a tapping saddle. Then, in comparison, the tapping sleeve, now what do you have?
Yeah, big difference.
Big difference. Much more space, less taps.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the piping material and their strengths?
Here we have a piece of 6-inch class 350 ductile iron pipe. Pressure rating here is 350 PSI. Then in the middle, we have a piece of HDPE, which is a DR11 and has a pressure rating of 200 PSI. Then over here, we have a piece of 6-inch PVC DR18 with a pressure rating of 235 PSI. You'll also notice the inside diameters. Because of the strength of the ductile iron material, we have a thinner wall, which is an increased inside diameter, versus the other materials that have a thicker wall and a smaller inside diameter, so you have less pumping costs with the ductile iron pipe.
Now, if you would like more information on the material we just covered, you can reach out to your local McWane Ductile sales representative or visit our website at www.mcwaneductile.com. We also have other resources such as the DIPRA installation guide for ductile iron pipe,
or the AWWA M41 manual, and also the AWWA C600 installation guide.
I think it's time to see how it's done. We're going to go out to West Wilson Utility District in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, where their crew is going to show us how each one of these methods is installed. So we're out here at West Wilson Utility District in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and I've got Jeremy and some of his team members from their construction division with me today. And we're going to go over the first tapping method. We're going to look at a direct 3/4 inch tap on ductile iron pipe.
On your different pipe diameters, there's different adapters, I guess you could call it, for your taps, and this one's for a 6 to 8 inch ductile iron. Just want to make sure you kind of center that on there. This is your tapping body, I guess you could call it. Just kind of make sure everything's centered.
Now we can do a dry tap and a wet tap. Which one are we going to be doing here first, Jeremy?
We'll just demonstrate a wet tap on this one. This is just a support chain that attaches it to the pipe. You want to make sure that you kind of take a little time with this to make sure, especially if it's a wet line, because if this blows off, it's not going to be good. Make sure you snug these up pretty good, because if this thing gets to wobbling around, it could possibly break the bit while you're actually making your tap. This one has got a flap in here that you want to make sure that it's actually open. You don't want to tap through that right there. If you're doing a live tap and you tap through that, you're not going to be able to shut the water off. Yeah, this is the open position. This is the closed. So you definitely want it in an open position when you start your tap. This right here just applies downward pressure as you're making the tap. Just don't apply too much force, it could possibly break your bit. So you just want to apply just enough that everything's turning pretty good. This is a manual. We actually have an air tapper that would actually fit on top of this to eliminate this ratchet. It's a lot faster. We do it about half the time. As you apply downward pressure, you just kind of go by feel how much you need to put pressure-wise on it.
Now, how will you know when you've completed the tap?
Well, the first step is on this bit, it actually cuts the pipe and you'll feel it drop down in the hole. Then you actually, the thread, you actually start threading it on the second part. But you'll feel it drop down when you break through on the first phase there. Right there, it just dropped through. And if it's a live tap, you need to make sure this strap stays on there, or it could blow it back up and possibly damage your machine. You just want to apply a little downward pressure to make sure it starts. And on this particular machine, it's got a line right here. You always run it down to that line. It's flush with the top of that right there. And once you run it down to the line, you want to release it a little bit. And once that pops up, you'll need to close this flapper right here, especially if it's a wet tap. Then you also need to turn your drain valve on to drain this upper body to relieve the pressure before you remove the top half of your tapping machine.
So in this case, we've actually got water pressure in here.
Water pressurized on the bottom here. Everything on top, I just relieve the pressure with this valve, and you're able to remove the top half here. But since it's been a wet tap, we need to remove the bit. We need to install this piece. This actually is the one that you would use to install the 3/4 inch corporation. They have them for 3/4 and 1 inch. And this adapter piece goes on top of your 3/4 inch corporation where your compression nut would go. And it installs in just like that. First, you need to make sure your actual corporation is actually still closed. This one's in the closed position. Right here, you'll open up your bottom flap. It's going to equalize the pressure back in your tapping machine, and you'll be able to drop your corporation down, and you'll feel it starting to your threads.
So that corporation stop's actually threading in right now.
It's threading into the pipe right now. You want to run it down, snug it up some. You don't got to get too carried away with it, because it can actually damage the threads on the top of that corporation where your 3/4 inch compression nut would go, and it makes it a little hard to get your service line in there. I always just run it down. You feel it pretty snug. You got to bump your ratchet to release it out of that adapter piece. It'll pop up like that. And now everything should be sealed off. You may want to hit your drain valve again before you pull anything out, just so you don't get so wet. Remove your top half, and you can see the corporation still in the main. And we'll remove the bottom half of the tap machine here. And you want to finish snugging up your corporation. Then you'll remove your adapter piece here that you use for your live taps.
After this, at this point, we're ready to
install your compression nut and your service line, and then turn it on.
Okay. All right, for the next tapping method, we're going to be using a tapping saddle. In this case, I've got an 8 by 3/4 double strap bronze saddle, and we've got 8 inch PVC.
First, you want to remove the straps. And when you're installing one of these on one of your older mains that's been in the system for a while, you probably want to use a little extra caution, because over the years the ground and stuff has shifted, and the that water line may be in a strain and you don't know it. So sometimes when you start tapping it, it may split the main, but just try to use a little extra caution when you put your saddle on, and maybe that won't happen.
So you're talking in the case that we're going to be doing a wet tap.
Yes.
We need to definitely pay extra attention
one of your older
to the line itself.
And you want to keep your straps as even as possible. And we always snug these up with a 1/2 inch ratchet before we go through the torque sequence. And like I said before, on this older water mains, if this was in your system, was a live line, you would definitely want to make sure you follow the torque specs.
Okay, what torque do we need to be set at?
We're going to be torquing this one at 30 foot-pounds.
Okay. And again, this would be the same procedure we would follow if we were putting this on ductile iron pipe or HDPE, is that right?
Yes, sir, it'd be the same exact steps.
And the torque is...
The torque range may be a little different, you know, depends on what pipe material you're using.
And diameter can affect the amount of torque required as well.
Yes, sir.
So we just need to make sure that we're following the proper torque requirements. So now that we've got everything torqued properly,
we're going to be installing a 3/4 inch corporation. We'll be putting some pipe sealing on the threads right here to help it seal.
Okay, and this would be the corp that we would use either on the sleeve or a direct tap.
Same one. And there's no torque specs on this 3/4 inch corporation. It's a tapered pipe thread. Just snug it up to whatever you feel comfortable with and it should be fine. And before you can make your tap, you'll have to open up your corporation here. You just want to put a little downward pressure, whatever you can feel comfortable with, and you can feel the bit drop in the pipe once you've made your tap.
Okay.
If this was a live tap or a wet tap, they call it, the actual water pressure would actually help you get your bit out. If this was an actual live tap, you would definitely need to close your corporation here before you remove your tapping machine. And when you remove your tapping machine, always look and make sure you got your cupin, they call it, after you have made your tap. That way you know you completely passed through the pipe.
Okay, yeah, we wouldn't want any part of that in the line because that could...
Well, it could stop up your service line if that was left in there. At this point right here, I mean, if you've already torqued your saddle and you made your tap and your corporation shut, as long as there's no visible leaks, you should be fine.
Okay.
Then you would install your compression nut here on your poly or copper service line and hook it up and turn it on. You should be good to go.
Okay. So Jeremy, if this were a live line and we're coming in and putting a service on an existing line, what are some things we need to pay attention to on this PVC line before we go to installing this saddle?
I mean, you want to look for any visible damage, and you know, the best you can, kind of look at the pipe the way it's in the ground and make sure it's not in a bind. You know, if it is, you know, if it looks like there's something, you know, wrong right there, you may want to choose another location a little closer right there, because some of that old pipe in the ground has got brittle over time and it will explode if it's not done right. Now,
am I correct in that sometimes in cases if there's a bend in a line or maybe even some settling in that line, can that?
Yeah, that'll definitely affect it. Yeah, you just gotta, you know, pay extra attention when it comes to that and just use your best judgment, I guess.
Okay. For this tapping method, we're going to be going over using a tapping sleeve on HDPE. And in this case, I've got a 6-inch by 3/4 tapping sleeve. I'm going to hand this over to Jeremy. So Jeremy, what do we got to do now?
First you got to take the nuts off of it here, put it around the pipe.
Now when you secure these nuts, Jeremy, are we just going to ratchet those down, or is there any particular torque we need to meet when we're doing this?
We're going to ratchet them down till they're fairly snug, then we're going to torque them at 50 foot-pounds. And you want to try to tighten them up where they're even. We always snug them up with a ratchet to start with before you torque them.
If we don't torque these and you just ratchet down on this, what do you think could possibly happen?
It may leak a little bit, and you would have to tighten them up again after you made your tap.
Okay.
But the best thing to do is torque them from the start.
Okay, now we're switching over. This is your torque wrench. Okay.
Yes. Torque them at 50 foot-pounds.
So I noticed that really going back and getting them even is really important.
Yeah, you want to keep them even.
Okay, so we hit our 50 pounds, so that's step one.
Mm-hmm. Step two would be install the corporation.
Okay, Jason, what do you got going on here?
I put pipe dope on the corporation, seal the threads.
Okay.
They're pretty coarse threads, so it goes in pretty good without cross-threading it.
Now, is there a torque requirement when we're doing this? So
I guess whatever you feel comfortable with.
Get it good and snug on there.
And after you install the corporation, you got to make sure it's open so your tapping bit can go in there. And this is the tap machine we use for poly and PVC and
your equipment seems to be in pretty good order, and that's something real important too, is to make sure that everything's working properly, make sure you got equipment that's safe and ready to use, right?
Yes, sir. This keeps downward pressure on the bit when you're tapping it to force it through the pipe. You just want to crank it and just put a little downward pressure, whatever you feel comfortable with. You can feel it drop through. Like right there, it just gets pretty.
Now, will it act any different when it's under pressure? That point?
First, when you're tapping the pipe, it does about the same. The only thing you got to watch is if it's under pressure, you have to keep this over the top because it will back out like it'll force it out. So you don't want it to slam out because it could possibly damage your 3/4 curb stop down there or your corporation.
Okay.
So you would release it. When it's under pressure, it comes out of the tap a little easier than dry. And right here, you want to, if it was a live tap, you would want to shut this corporation right here.
Okay, to close the pressure off.
To close the pressure off, because if you pull this off with that being closed, it's going to make a mess. And this is your compression nut. If you was going to run a poly service or a copper service, you would insert your copper or poly, then tighten this up till it stops, and you should be good to go.
Okay, and so when we're ready and have that connection made, the only thing we need to do is turn our corp on, open that up to provide service.
That's correct.
Okay, so that does it for our demonstration on the 3 tapping methods. I'd like to send out a special thank you to this crew and to West Wilson Utility District. Now, if you would like any more information or you would like training on this topic, please contact your local McWane sales representative, or you can visit our website at www.mcwaneductile.com. And as always,
work hard, work smart, and work safe.